Hi, I'm Makte. I'm on Barbed Wire and I'm going to share about mapping multiple Malaysias. One Malaysia was launched in 2009 by our Prime Minister, Najib Razak, and this led me to think about the question of Malaysia and how we might have more than one Malaysia, that we should actually have multiple Malaysias, which is an area of my interest. So if we just go next, and I did a quick Google search, this was what I found. Very popular on a lot of blogs. One Black Malaysia, a civil disobedience movement that started out in Perak, which has now spread all over the country, and 15 Malaysia, which of course featured 15 filmmakers making short films about Malaysia. What I'm interested in these different Malaysias is that they are big groups of Malaysians trying to subvert or change or take ownership of the notion of this brand that's been put forward, One Malaysia, to question it, so to speak. So of course this led me to look at people who've been thinking about or dealing with other Malaysias for a long time. Of course Farish Noor has written a very famous book called exactly that, The Other Malaysia, which was translated into Bahasa Malaysia, Di Balik Malaysia, Behind Malaysia, right? Looking at Malaysias that have existed for hundreds if not thousands of years. His contemporary and also writer Amir Muhammad has written and published this book, New Malaysian Essays, which features writings by young Malaysians trying to construct and deconstruct new Malaysias. The artwork in the front cover is by Yi Ilan from Sabah. This led me to think about maps, because maps and nations pretend to be very fixed and linear and unchanging. But maps, as with anything else, are obviously man-made and they change over time. So we are going to travel back in time over 100 years, and this is what the place that we now call Malaysia used to look like. All right. The blue bits, straight settlements, Penang, Malacca, Singapore. The red bits, Federated Malay States, Middle Malaysia, and Johor was by itself. Kedah, Perlis, Kelantan, and Terengganu were actually part of the Siamese Empire. Right? They were not part of this place that we now call Malaysia. In fact, our first Prime Minister, Tunku Abdul Rahman, was born in Kedah. He was in fact Thai when he was born. If we jump forward 30 years, we have British Malaya. Of course, British were there also in 1909. Strait settlement, same thing. Federated Malay States, same thing. But by now, the northern states had formed with Johor to form the unfederated Malay States. Keep in mind that the British were running these three different places, these three different colors very differently, each with its own style of governance. Yeah. In 1942, the Japanese came. It was the Japanese that managed to do what the British didn't. They managed to unite Malaysia, and for the 3 years and 8 months here, they did something that the British never were able to do. They colonized us by changing our sense of land and space, but also by changing our sense of time. They did this by moving our clocks forward 1.5 hours to match the Japanese time. So if you want to colonize people, take control of their land and also of their time. By 1945, 2 bombs had dropped Nagasaki, Hiroshima. British came roaring back. Persekutuan Tanah Melayu, Singapore was part of this Persekutuan. Yeah? If we jump forward to 1957, we know exactly what happened. Merdeka. Singapore, though, was not a part of this particular imagination. No Singapore here. Jump forward, 1963. Suddenly, we have more than double our mass as a nation. Right? We have added Singapore, Sabah, and Sarawak. Right? Very quickly, pay attention at Singapore. Ping, ping. Now you see it. Now you don't. Right? By 1965, Singapore is no longer part of this place that we now call Malaysia. All right? So we've looked at historical maps of Malaysia just over the past 100 years. Now we look to the future. This is my map of Malaysia, right? Sabah Sarawak, they're sick of us, no longer want to be part of us, form their own state, right? They will do their own raping, looting, and stealing of resources. No need for Semenanjung people to do it for them anymore. Terengganu and Kelantan might form their own Islamic state by then and call themselves Kelantan. Singapura will now become Singapura because they Singapura steal back all the land from the sea, right? Buy back from Indonesia and also take over Johor. And what we will be left with is Malaysia as we know it. So as you can see, in just a space of 100 years, the map of Malaysia and the borders of Malaysia changed many times. There's nothing to say that the Malaysia that we now know in 2010 will be the Malaysia that we'll have in 100 years. So if you have interesting visions of Malaysia, 100 years from now, interesting maps, interesting drawings, use Photoshop, whatever, send to us, send to Popwire, and if we like them, if we think they're fantastic, we'll put them up. Thank you very much.